I
I
see. And I
see.
guess speaking to that script then, what kind of goes into making a Dogen script? Is it
Mhm.
really, I guess, easy? Is it quick to come up with these ideas? Like, do you have a list of every annoying or random experience that happened to you in Japan ready to go?
Um, yeah, kinda. So oftentimes the ideas themselves will just kind of like come to me, those like pop into my mind randomly.
Right.
And because I've kind of exhausted a lot of ideas at this point, I don't have a script. I don't have a list anymore. I just have the single individual next video that I'm going to be working on that'll kind of often just pop into my mind like 2 or 3 days before I actually start before the deadline. But I think I think I talked about this to Matt a little bit, but I think maybe some people they think that my Japanese is better than it is because in my opinion, my creative writing skills are actually better than my Japanese. And because of that, like if you can get someone to laugh, you can typically get someone to have an agreeable impression of you. And that'll affect everything about their impression of you. So if I speak with pretty good Japanese, but then I can make someone laugh while doing that in Japanese, then it's kind of like, oh, there hasn't been a lot of instances in which I watched a foreigner speak Japanese and they got me to laugh. This is kind of, fun. This is interesting.
Right.
So I certainly think people like Matt from Matt versus Japan and like Nick, like definitely their Japanese is better than mine. But because I kind of do this different thing, because I do the creative writing, there's just kind of like a different ingredient that goes into my content, so to speak. And maybe that's
Right.
what helps things. But in terms of like actually writing out a script, I think the main thing for me, and you guys will can probably get this after having a conversation with me, but I'm not a very articulate person, and that's because I tend to overthink things. And that actually helps a lot when scripting or with creative writing in general, because in my opinion, in this day and age, people have the tendency to immediately post every kind of, what would you say, thought that comes into their head that they think is funny.
Mhm.
And 9 times out of 10, in my opinion, if that same person took an additional 15 minutes to write that funny thought down on a piece of paper, to look at it, to look at every single word in the thought after articulating the thought into words, and thought, is this the best word for every word in this sentence? Is this the best choice for every word in this sentence? Could I rearrange the words in this sentence to make the impact of this idea more powerful? So oftentimes it's less the idea and more about how to communicate the idea. And that's where I think the creative background writing for me, all those years of, well, initially, again, starting as just a blogger, but writing, thinking about, is this like an interesting way to say this? And then in university, learning more about like the creative writing processes or the process and kind of like small tricks that you can use and like the callback and stuff like that. And then just 3 or 4 years of creative writing with like those various essays before doing anything on YouTube. That skill, in my opinion, is what allows me to now have kind of like an idea that every other person living in Japan has thought about, but maybe articulate that in a way that's hopefully interesting to some people. I think it's a matter of patience. I think if you just have the patience to think about the idea and, again, how to articulate that in the best way possible, I think a lot more people could do what I'm doing.